This is the Lichtman Live post show, the greatest post show that's ever existed on the face of planet Earth. I'm your host, Sam Lichtman. Thank you all for being here on this night, June 12th, 2025. Crazy night, huh? Wow. A lot of breaking news while we were live on Lichtman Live this evening. Sorry, I'm trying to get my chat together. Hello, Teddy. Hello, Cynthia. Vladimir. Obsidian Knight. Sam, will you participate in the No Kings protest on Saturday? I am not aware of that protest. Obsidian Jet, hello. Nice to see you. I hope you're doing well tonight. Hello, Michael Nightwolf. Excuse me while I set up real quick. We are live, Abe. Claudia's in the house. Where did that go? Let me get my chat up. Let me get my chat up. My chat up. People are freaking out that I don't know what the No Kings protest is. I mean, I'm assuming it's a protest on the day of the military parade to sort of counter Trump. That's what I'm assuming. I mean, I've heard things about it. I don't know any detailed information about it, though. Hello, Suzanne AP. So, is World War III breaking out? That's everybody's question right now, right? Like, what the heck is happening between Iran and Israel? You know, it's interesting. The other day, I feel like I saw someone saying, like, this is all distraction because Israel's about to attack Iran, et cetera, et cetera. And I saw that, but, you know, I don't know. I just didn't think much about it. Or, like, I thought about it, and then I stopped thinking about it. It seems like stuff is definitely popping off right now in the Middle East. God, my headphones are so tangled. I can't even... I don't even think it's humanly possible to untangle them without losing the stream. Wait, maybe. No, I don't think it's possible. God dang it. All right, I can't wear my headphones. Sharon says, Israel and Iran conflict is scary, no doubt. Sam, is there any news about Judge Breyer's decision on Trump's handling on federal troops? Yes, that's also breaking news. Judge Breyer said that it was illegal what Trump did, and he needs to give power back to Gavin Newsom. I guess we'll see what happens there. Let's see.
After years of crap.
I'm trying to bring up some sort of video on this right now.
Generate more missiles than they can actually fire at Israel. So that would be an option, but that would be a marked widening of the war and probably lead to direct pressure on the Iranian regime. The ultimate goal of Iranian statecraft is regime survival, and they will make their
Sam, will you ever do a call-in show again? I got to do that. I just don't know how to do it on my own. I have to figure that out. Dennis is here. What was your dad excitingly pointing at towards the end of the live? I don't know. I don't remember. I'm not sure.
Calculation about the next.
Iran State TV says the country's air defense system is on full alert. General, if you're still with us, I just have one other question. In terms of the...
Oh, what was he... Oh, when he was pointing, he saw that we had 17,000 viewers and he got excited. That's what he was pointing. He was like, oh! Yeah. Yeah.
They cannot do the things that we could do to the Iranian nuclear program because they don't have the special ordinance that will let you go deep into the deep underground spaces where the Iranians have
17,000, Cynthia, not 1,700. 17,000 total views, not current live viewers.
Come back tomorrow night. Is this a one-night event? Is it going to be a multi-day event? That's still to be discovered. The Israelis will certainly assess the damage. They'll look at how it went, and then they'll make decisions based on that. And they'll also make decisions, I'm sure, based on whatever the Iranian response is. And again, I would just emphasize the narrower the Israeli strike.
It looks to me like that's those smoke. That smoke is in like a pretty populated place in Tehran to me. It doesn't look like it's on the outskirts of Tehran. It looks like it's in Tehran itself.
Officials thinking right now in terms of their assets in the region that are possibly in danger. Give me a sense of the to-do list that suddenly has popped up in front of U.S. decision makers.
So everybody's at a very high state of alert right now. Probably a lot of people are in shelters.
Could this be the next October 7th? I'm not sure what you mean by that exactly.
I would think the CENTCOM commander has probably taken steps to disperse his aircraft, to position ships in different places than where they've just been, to do a variety of things, all of which will complicate Iranian targeting as they begin to decide what their next move is going to be. And I would also think that there'll probably be some clear and unambiguous messaging directed at Iran, warning them of the ultimate consequences of attacking U.S. forces and U.S. targets in the region. Because I have to believe, John, if that occurs, the Iranian regime itself will come under pressure. And I go back to a point I made earlier. Preservation of that regime remains the highest goal of Iranian statecraft.
And just holding on that point for a second, it remains the highest goal. So does that mean they're limited really in how far they're really going to go because they don't want to get
I want to chill a little bit.
a massive attack that might bring that into question?
Within their own worldview, the Iranians are realists. They know the limits of their capabilities. They've been badly exposed by the attacks of their offensive forces on Israel. Their own defensive forces have been severely attrited by prior Israeli attacks. They are at the weakest they've been in many, many years. When pressed, the Iranian...
Angus says, Trump set up this bombing of Iran with getting rid of the U.S. program to rid Iran's nuclear power program while the U.S. also expanded. Yeah, that's what my dad was saying at Lichtman Live, that if we would have stuck with the Iran deal, none of this would be happening. The entire Middle East is aligned with Israel? Where have you been for the last 70 years? Sharon says, I love Jews, but Netanyahu is another Trump. Yeah, I'm half Jewish. I don't support Netanyahu.
Developer who
I
has
like
been
her. What's her
the person
name?
he's put at the tip of the spear with all really highly sensitive diplomacy, transmitted a proposal via Oman.
Oh, sorry, Teddy. You said the entire Middle East will align against Israel. Yes. Sorry. I read that wrong.
Of what a potential negotiated agreement with the United States could look like. But what was clear within those option sets was that the United States does not want Iran to be able to enrich uranium, nuclear fuel, on its own territory, even if it were just at low levels of enrichment for what Iran was claiming always was a civilian nuclear program. The United States was offering, okay, we'll let you have a nuclear program that is peaceful and for...
Yes, Vladimir, I like this reporter. I forget her name, though.
...of your own borders. We don't want you to have that option.
She's famous. She's like CBS's...
That's where Iran was really insistent that they had the right to this. The U.S. offered and actually reached out, as President Trump did in his conversation with Vladimir Putin, the president of Russia, to see if other states that have close relationships with Iran, as Russia does.
Yeah, Meredith Brennan or something like that. That's her name. Margaret Brennan, that's it.
90% is weapons grade, so you can see how close that was and why it was making U.S. officials and other officials around the world nervous, and said you could ship that to Russia. By the way, that's what President Obama did in that 2015 diplomatic deal. So there are some ideas in this proposal that look very similar to that same diplomatic accord that President Trump exited back in 2018. Remember, until 2018, Iran had agreed to limit its program. It was only after the U.S. pulled out that they began this enrichment cycle again, and that has what has triggered this renewed concern. Their behavior in the region in terms of funding militias always continued. Their development of missiles also of concern to the United States. But the restrictions on its nuclear program are really of the utmost concern to President Trump.
Margaret Brennan, Chief Foreign Affairs Correspondent for CBS and the anchor of Face the Nation.
That's it. She's the anchor of Face the Nation. That's what it is.
Reporting out of Israel that, and this is that the Iranian regime is advancing a secret program to build a nuclear weapon. This is according to an Israeli military official. Iran has enough material to make 15 nuclear bombs within days. And this, again, is according to an Israeli military official.
Huffington Post is reporting that the head of the Iran Revolutionary Guard is thought to be dead. That's crazy.
CBS News 24/7, your local news, and for some of you tonight on CBS.
Let's see what Al Jazeera is saying. I mean, I know they're pretty anti-Israel, but, you know, it's interesting to hear everybody's perspective sometimes.
They are not separate, and it doesn't have any meaning for the Iranians to sit at the table with the supporters of the ones who have just carried out strikes against Iran, have killed Iranian civilians and have killed Iranian officials.
2 leading Iran nuclear scientists killed. Wow, that's crazy. That building does not look like a science facility or a military headquarters. That just looks like an apartment building.
And it's open to mutual respect discussions to show that
and
give guarantees that its nuclear program is peaceful. When the other side does not want to do such a thing, there is no.
Do they have a live broadcast? They might not have a live broadcast. Honestly, DW has a good live broadcast, I believe.
Capital of Soviet-controlled East Germany, the other remained in the democratic West.
Sky
Deal
News.
Conversations that the U.S. government and the Iranian government are hoping to have are still on track. President Trump very much wants to be able to claim that he was able to come up with a nuclear deal. Before he was elected to office, he promised that he would end the Israeli-Hamas war.
What are my thoughts on a potential Israel-Iran war? My thoughts are, for the love of God, please no. That would be horrific. Julianne says, hey, Sam, was telling someone about your live stream today. Thank you. I appreciate that. Sky News is Trump propaganda. All right, what should I be watching? NBC News. That's Sky News. What? Times of India? No. Live news. CBS is probably the best place. Al Jazeera isn't bad either. They're on like commercial or something.
Now, what's the scope of this retaliation? Is it going to be a declaration of war? Is it going to be a tit for tat? These are all issues that, of course, we wouldn't know, and we'll need to hear from the officials to understand whether they are going to take this path. Yet, the most important point here is whether Iran is going to change its nuclear doctrine. There have been several indications in the past, and actually, in different conversations between myself and Iranian officials with respect to the Iranian nuclear doctrine, there were some kind of analysis from them, or at least they were suggesting that in the future there might be a change in this doctrine. However, without having any kind of a, let me say, military dimension. But with such an attack on Iran, take this leadership towards deciding to change or diverting its nuclear doctrine towards pursuing nuclear bombs. This is actually the game changer here. And actually, I wanted to ask this question to Hamid Reza Ghulamzadeh. I don't know if he's still with us. If he's still with us, I would like to ask Hamid Reza. Yeah, Hamid Reza, Ali Hashim here. I wanted to ask you whether these attacks, which is actually a kind of an act of war, will change Iran's calculations and will impose on the Iranian leadership.
No fighting in the chat. I see people fighting in the chat. No fighting.
I don't expect it to happen like that unless there are serious threats against Iran with nuclear attacks from the Israeli side. In that case, it would be a defense approach, and it would be necessary for Iran to.
Hey, Sammy boy, why don't you guys support destroying nuclear sites many years in the making to deter a nuclear strike on your own people? An ethnic home country, asking as a fellow Jewish person. I don't quite understand your question. I never said I supported or didn't support this. I just said a war between the two would be horrific. And I believe that this problem was already solved in the Iran nuclear deal. And unfortunately, that was ended, and now this conflict has popped back up into play, which is bad. Philip says, by the time World War III officially starts, most of us will already be fighting over eggs and antidepressants. That's funny. Only Israel is allowed to own unchecked, unaccountable nuclear weapons program. There's some truth to that. I think a lot of countries are allowed to have unchecked, unaccountable weapons programs. The U.S., countries in Europe, etc.
Okay, let us turn now to Tauhid Asadi, who joins us from Tehran. Tauhid, I just want to ask you about reports coming into us that Iranian TV saying that nuclear sites and nuclear figures have been targeted in these attacks. What more can you tell us on that front?
Well, let me just give you a picture of what happened so far. We know that at around 3:30 local time in the morning, there were reports coming out about the different explosions being heard in the capital of the country. 6 of them were initially reported, but right now the footages are coming showing that there are more, not only limited to the capital of the country here in Tehran, but also across the country in different cities. There are very important lines about this unprecedented strikes that Israelis conducted against Iran, and there is going to be further consequences down the road, obviously. But from what I can say, so far we know that residential areas as well as military headquarters have been under attack after this strikes by the Israelis.
All right, Charles,
the source, I mean, the means of which is not clear, whether it's airstrike or any other type.
We're close to a timeout here,
or
folks.
anything else. There is no confirmed report on that, but it's still, we know that several people have been killed, including civilians. The footages showing, let's say, the bodies of women and children taken out from one of the scenes of this strike. But the break.
Do you think the foreign policy key is a failure if this continues? Certainly, it's certainly likely if this accelerates. Didn't Israel strike Iran earlier in the year? I sort of have a memory of that. Thank you, 80 Mart. You're the GOAT. I appreciate that donation. have a memory of that happening, right? Or am I tripping? I think I even reported on it. I'm not a reporter, but covered it on a live. Let me see.
Different buildings, and the extent of this strike is very massive, and there are different types, it seems. For example, in one of these scenes, I saw that just one particular floor of a building has been hit, showing the targeted and precise nature of these attacks. Also, in other cases, we see massive explosions damaging the nearby buildings in the city, and also a research center, the detail of which is
almost
not
a year
known
ago.
yet, is reported to be attacked. And also a skyscraper in Tehran is reported to be attacked. And in terms of other facilities, we know, or at least we have...
Crazy Lady says yes, but it was a rebel group in Iran. Yeah, I don't remember that being... I mean, I remember it being a big deal, but it certainly didn't turn into anything big, right?
Can refer to Natanz nuclear facility, which is critically important when it comes to the enrichment program of the country. But still, reports are coming that the sound of explosion has been heard from...
Guys, don't forget to like my stream, por favor. And if you're not subscribed, please subscribe.
About Tabriz, Maraghe, Piranshahar, and other cities. There are reports coming that the voice and, I say, sound of explosion have been heard. Air defense system of the country is said to be activated and under 100% preparation. Also, reports are coming that there is a possibility for a next wave of attacks, and Iran is getting ready for that. And last but not the least, the reports are coming that now the air, there is no flight across the air of the country, and what we see is that all flights have been cancelled. Previously, the Imam Khomeini Airport, the main international airport of the capital, announced that it's going to suspend all its flights until further notice. And also, we've got the same statement coming from the Mehrabad, the local, airport in the capital, saying the same thing, but it's still in a broader context. Right now, you don't see any airplane on the air of the country. That's what we have for now, but the story is...
Fried Jemmy, you're a hero.
...coming out.
Okay, and Iran also saying that, according to the Reuters news agency, that it is planning to give a harsh response to this Israeli series of attacks. Let's go now to Noor O'Day, who joins us from Amman. So Iran saying that they are planning a harsh response. Israel then in a state of emergency, and they are presumably bracing themselves for an Iranian retaliation. What more are you hearing from where you are?
Well, we know that the senior Israeli officials have been taken to a secure location. That has already happened over an hour ago. There is a plan in place, and the chips are falling in place. Hospitals have been instructed to discharge all patients who can go home or to other facilities, care facilities in the country, and to vacate as many beds as possible. All doctors in the Israeli military have been called to active duty. The occupied West Bank has now been declared under lockdown, a measure.
Douglas says, I think I've been hearing for 2 days that Israel is going to strike Iran. I would have thought they would have moved people and things. Yeah, I feel like, again, I said this at the beginning of the stream. I feel like I heard that sort of whispers of that a little bit the last few days too. Maybe they did move some stuff. I mean, we don't know.
They've been instructed to stay close to...
Why did Senior Lichtman make that face when you're live? And he saw how many viewers we got, and he was excited.
Arises, but there will be no workflow economy will not be going on as normal, and it is really up to the Israeli military.
You know, I'm telling you, if I was a Israeli citizen, I feel like Netanyahu has put the Israeli state in more danger than prior to his reign. Are Syria and Lebanon going to get involved too? I don't know, man. Angus, how am I supposed to answer that question?
One source of the most...
I hope not, but who the hell knows?
Those targeted for assassination is quite long and unprecedented. Some reporters, military reporters, have likened it to doing in 10 minutes in Iran what Israel did in 10 days to Hezbollah's leadership ranks, essentially trying to eliminate all of those ranks in that first wave of military strikes on Iran that began almost 2 hours ago. We still wait for confirmation on who exactly among the targets is confirmed to have been killed. But certainly the attack, which according to Israeli sources was sanctioned on Monday, was done in a very comprehensive manner. It was quite well planned, and it also involved, in addition to the airstrikes, it involved clandestine activities and attacks by the Mossad. That's according to, again, the military radio, as close to an official statement as we can get at the moment. Certainly everybody is really on edge, waiting to see how this will happen, what kind of Iranian retaliation will happen, and what ramifications that will have, not just for Israelis, but also for Palestinians who are in the crossfire, whether they want to or not.
Let's take you now then to Washington, D.C. Let's go to Allan Fisher, who joins us live from Washington, D.C. now. Allan, what has the US President been saying? What has the US Secretary of State been saying? What is the US point of view in all of this at the moment?
Well, I can tell you that at 11 o'clock tomorrow morning in Washington, D.C., there'll be a meeting of the National Security Council in the Situation Room in the White House. There are some critics who are suggesting that Donald Trump needs to convene that meeting much sooner. And clearly the United States had an inkling that there was an attack pending, because in the last 24 hours we have, of course, heard of the partial evacuation of the embassy in Baghdad and a number...
My question is, why now? Why is the strike now? I mean, I guess maybe they could have been planning for it for a long time, and it's just sort of a coincidence that it's now, but does anybody have any perspective on that?
Killed the then head of the Revolutionary Guard. There were attacks on the US embassy in Baghdad, and that was thought to be linked to Iranian proxies. Marco Rubio, in a statement, has said that the US were informed that Israel was taking this action. It was a matter of self-defense, as they were concerned.
Yeah, my impression that Russia and China are allies of Iran, but also Russia and China are weird with who they align themselves with. It sort of seems to me like they sort of pick and choose who's to align with, you know, based on the now of their own interests. Could it be Israel trying to distract from an escalation in Gaza that might be coming? That's possible. People may turn against Israel, but AIPAC has bought every right-wing politician and about 80% of Dems, so the U.S. will support Israel. Yeah, I don't think this is going to cause the U.S. to not support Israel. It's something about the fact that Iran said they were not shutting down their nuclear weapons program. Not surprising. I don't think they would just be like, oh, Israel, you want us to shut this down? Sure. Well, Europe aligned with Israel. They seem to be losing support for Israel. Yeah, I have noticed Europe sort of slipping in their support for Israel. Sharon says, don't go to the Middle East. Okay. Thanks for the advice. Newsom's giving a speech. All right, let's check out Newsom. How do I watch that? Does anybody have, can anybody, lichtman.sam@gmail.com, can anybody send me a way to watch the Newsom speech? C-SPAN? They're not live. They don't, I guess they don't use YouTube. Is this it?
U.S. Senator John Ossoff in Georgia. And before you skip this ad, just hear me out.
In the wildfires in Los Angeles and all the work they did to secure locations and keep property and personal lives safe over the course of the last few months. These folks are now being commandeered to do ICE raids. You've seen the photographs. That ends tomorrow.
Is this the speech?
At
Thumbs
noon.
up in the chat if it is, thumbs down if it's not.
And the notion that the United States active duty Marines, these heroes, would be used to militarize the streets of an American city is an abomination. Founding fathers did not live and die to see that happen in this country for no reason whatsoever than vanity. Theater, to instill fear, to incite a response. So I'm very hopeful this order puts that in perspective, and hopefully Donald Trump will immediately back down. The courts have ruled on the guard. They will be back under my command, and he'll be relieved. Donald Trump will be relieved of his command at noon tomorrow. Of course.
Douglas has never been a fan of Newsom, but I will support anybody that stands up to Donald Trump. I feel that.
With anyone to advance the interests of 40 million Americans that I happen to represent here in California. And so I've always maintained an open hand, not a closed fist. But I also am going to stand.
Newsom is more corrupt than Trump? I don't think so. He might be corrupt, but he ain't more corrupt than Trump. He ain't taking a Qatari jet and selling Bitcoin.
Believe in constraints, does not believe in the Constitution, who is threatening judges, that threatens not to abide by orders, and Donald Trump better abide by these orders, or we have a constitutional crisis, likes of which we haven't seen in our lifetime. Well, that will be determined by fate and future, but also fundamentally by whatever decision he makes. That's how things break down. It's a federal judge with a federal order. Period, full stop. It's the rule of law. These are the foundational principles of a constitutional democracy. He must work under the constraints as a constitutional officer of the Constitution of the United States of America. That's what this court order demands of the President of the United States. He is not a monarch, he is not a king, and he should stop acting like one. I spoke to him on Friday night. He had a mysterious conversation with me 3 days later. You can't even make this stuff up. Oh, I would love to share the readout, but I revere the Office of Presidency, so I'll keep it in confidence. He has quite literally made up components of that conversation. He's been a stone-cold liar about what he said we talked about. He never discussed the National Guard, period, full stop. I would love to share with you what he actually talked about. It would send shivers up your spine.
He almost said fucking spine. I swear he almost said fucking spine.
Of course not. Yeah, no, absolutely not. We were back and forth with Susie Wiles as chief of staff, and then mayor of Los Angeles. Saw a missed call from the president, called him back. I actually texted him back, you want full disclosure? And he called me right back. We discussed for a nanosecond Los Angeles, and he immediately zigged and zagged into 7 or 8 other topics.
Aaron Bell says, I want to see that transcript. Me too. I want to see that transcript.
Considering the world we're living in.
So how did you find out?
I learned about it when I saw some tweet about Governor Newsom, a nickname, by the way, that's hardly original. There was an 8th grader on Baltimore Street in Corte Madera that used to call me that. And the reference to the National Guard being commandeered.
Where did Newsom grow
in
up?
that same tweet. That's how I learned about it.
I know California, but
stand on appeal, especially if it gets to the Supreme Court.
Well, I'm confident in the rule of law. I'm confident in the Constitution of the United States. I'm confident in the wisdom and judgment of a very well-respected federal judge. And I'm confident on the basis of the review of the 36 pages, absolutely, it will stand.
Governor, does this order go even further than you expected? I think your attorneys had asked for them to simply be restricted to federal law.
I'll just say we're extraordinarily pleased by the 36-page ruling of Justice Breyer.
Can you speak to some of the journalists about some of the journalists in LA who were bullies or?
Well, there's 2 investigations. The one we initiated with the California Highway Patrol, and there's one that has been initiated independent by the LAPD. And people should feel safe. Reporters.
Okay, I don't think he's saying anything new really here.
The industrial grade products you need. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
With Lucid, agile teams don't have to start from square one. Need to run agile events with a hybrid team? Use Facilitator
or deadlier.
And Israel have been saying throughout the evening, throughout this time that we've been hearing these reports, that they are now shutting their country down, so the airport. And as you said, this is a sign of the fact that they are then preparing for potentially war. From here on then, we have no direction in terms of, well, we've been speaking to the experts that have joined us. No one seems to know for sure where this is going. But clearly there's a lot of concern on both sides. And then we have Iran saying that they will hit back with force. And then the US coming in, the Secretary of State Marco Rubio saying, pretty much warning Iran to stay away from any US targets. So it seems with all of those facts in place and all those statements that there is a large fear that this could escalate from all of those parties involved.
Well, indeed. I mean, if Iran is going to hit directly on Israel, then it's not going to be just like the one in October. It's not going to be like the one in April. It's going to be a vast attack. Now, what's the scope of this attack? Where are they going to hit? And is it going to be deadly? Are there going to be casualties? Are we going to see more tit for tat? And the Israelis are keen to continue this campaign. And they said it. This is going to take as much as it needs to dismantle Iran's program. Well, how much will this stay? And who is going to intervene or interfere in order to stop this war? Because now, we are in a state of war.
Jeanette.
This is very complicated, and it's not anymore about killing a commander somewhere in Syria.
Political nicknames are very middle schoolish. Yeah. I like Little Marco. I don't know what it is about Little Marco. I just like Little Marco. It just hits, right?
Several major...
Sam, do you think Tim Walz has a good chance of being the Dems candidate in 28? I do not.
Going to be very complicated, especially if the Iranians are also still keen to put aside the Americans. I mean, because
I'm close to 10K subs. I don't think I am. I mean, I'm at low 9,000s. I'm still quite a ways away. TBH.
Nuclear doctrine, will it stay the same? Will it change? Because the Iranians are going to limit their coordination or cooperation.
I'm not saying I don't
with
like Tim
international-
Walz. I'm just saying I don't think he's a serious contender for the nomination. So much for no new wars under Trump. That's a good point, Brass Man. That's a really good point.
Now, whether this nuclear program is going to be complete.
Oh, what the hell?
This has started, but it just turned the whole region upside down.
Absolutely, yeah, turned the whole region upside down. Let's turn to Noor O'Day, who joins us from Amman now. And Noor, I'm just wondering what the very latest is from what you're hearing. I've just got a line that I just wanted to bring viewers, that Israel saying that, according to the Reuters news agency, reporting that Israel saying they fully coordinated with Washington on Iran. That word coordinated, very particularly used there. I'm just wondering, Noor, what you're hearing from where you are in Amman.
We're hearing much of the same from Israeli media reports and sources close to the.
I thought I had read something when we were on Lichtman Live that Washington was saying they had no idea this was even happening. Or like they knew it was happening, but they didn't have any coordination.
The fighter jets have not been met with any kind of air defense from Iran, and this might corroborate what Israel had claimed the last time there was a strike on Iran, that it had decimated Iran's air defenses. Of course, we wait to see whether that is true or not, but certainly it was. It's
VKM, yes, I did hear about the Air India crash. Pretty horrific. How bad is this? It seems bad. As of right now, it seems pretty bad. But I also feel like every time you think Iran is gonna like tangle, they don't. I have like this weird feeling that Iran is not as strong as they're made out to be, and part of me thinks that this will be a one and done type thing, but you never know. It could turn out to an all-out war. Hopefully that was helpful.
Close relationship Israel has with the United States. We heard that from the Israeli Prime Minister in his statement, which was in English, talking about this attack being in Israel's interest, but also in that of the United States, talking about the friendship and the mutual interest, even using the term civilized world against one of the world's most dangerous countries or governments. And so that is the narrative, perhaps, that Benjamin Netanyahu will be very keen on repeating time and time again, probably also in order to overshadow any kind of criticism that this airstrike might get. In the meantime, the Israeli opposition has congratulated the Israeli army on its attack and expressed support for this attack against Iran, expressed confidence in the Israeli army and its capabilities and support for the Israeli public, which will now be basically on lockdown, ordered to confine their activities to those allowed by the Israeli Home Command.
Okay, Noor, thank you very much. Al Jazeera's correspondent Dorsa Jabari joins us now in the studio. Dorsa, just getting a report in here Dorsa. Now that Iran's armed forces spokesperson has said that Israel and the US will pay a heavy price for the Israeli attack. That has been the line that they've been going down all through these reports that we've had coming into us of these attacks. It's an escalation, but it's really beyond that now.
Certainly, I think it is now clear.
SG says, after the election, I had to stop watching your dad and you. Oh my gosh, it hurt. However, please know that your voices are heard and appreciated. Well, I'm glad you're back, SG.
Going to end very soon. Iranians are waking up in Tehran and across the country to news that their country is still under attack, and officials are still trying to deal with what is happening. And I think it's very clear that Iran, in the next few hours, the leadership, specifically the Supreme Leader, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, will have some very difficult decisions to make.
A Newsom Shapiro ticket would win in a landslide? Maybe.
And as a result of these actions, and they have to make it very clear that they are going to defend the country and its people, because we've seen civilian casualties, and the scenes we're seeing now in the capital, Tehran, are reminiscent of the Iran-Iraq War. And that is a time where I grew up in Tehran during that war. As a child, I remember these images vividly, not to this extent, but the bombings happening in the capital all day and night during that war. And this is the first time now since 1988, when that war ended, that Iranians are seeing these images, and it is extremely alarming and shocking. I've spoken to family members in Tehran, and they just say they have no words. They are in shock of what is happening. But the establishment is likely not going to buy any of the lines that we're getting from the United States. The Americans have been fully supporting Israel, and they know very clearly that Israel would not be able to carry out this operation, this wide-scale attack across Iran without U.S. support. So it's going to be very difficult for them not to deliver on the threats that they've been making over and over again for the past nearly 3 decades now. Netanyahu has said over and over again, his mission is to ensure Iran.
Do you have a car? Do you have a clean driving record?
These AI ads are nuts, bro.
Purposes. Now the IEA is saying they've been hiding a parallel program. So the things have gotten very, very complicated, and that is why we're here now. And Israel clearly, yet again, have taken matters into their own hands. The Israeli Prime Minister making it clear that he doesn't listen to anyone. He doesn't answer to anyone. And the statement we saw from Netanyahu quoting religious reasons for his actions are going to be met with counter-religious reasons from the Iranians as to why they see this as a full act of war, and they're going to have to defend their country.
Tulsa, as you really put that into perspective, because you have covered this region extensively, and Ali, just to bring you in, you said that earlier, that it's 1988 that we really saw scenes of this magnitude. Of course, there have been attacks in the last year from Israel to Iran, but not on this scale. And putting that into perspective from your knowledge, how serious is this? And, where could this go from here?
Well, this is a new situation, a new status quo. The whole Middle East is emerging into a state of war. I mean, it started, as we've been saying in the past hours. In the past, there were Iranian retaliation to attacks on Iranian commanders or assassinations in Damascus or, for example, Ismail Haniyeh inside Iran. But today, there is an act of war, a vast attack on several provinces, on vital institutions, on commanders, officials in the state. So probably this is not going to end in a good way. I mean, for now, we are waiting. Now I'm hearing also that Ali Shamkhani, who is an advisor to Iran's Supreme Leader, former secretary to Iran's National Security Council, was injured in this attack. So this gives you an indication how much high these personnel who were killed or injured, the commander of the IRGC, Ghulam Ali Rashid, the nuclear scientists, the one we mentioned, Fridun Abbasi, and others. So this is becoming a situation where it's really difficult to see it being contained very soon.
Dawson,
we'll live with it for some time.
Dawson, I just want to bring you back in here. From your coverage of events over the last couple of years, clearly have...
Raul says, Sam is so energetic tonight. I'm just trying to take this all in, really. just trying to listen and figure out what's happening.
Coming into us, and we don't have, just to remind viewers, the full extent of those who are injured, those who have died, and that will come in, in the coming hours and days. But just in terms of Iran's firepower, then, do they, in terms of military power, do they have the strength there to strike back?
Well, I think we've seen the two attacks that Iran launched on Israel last year, one in April and one in October. We saw a preview of what Iran is capable of. They have a huge arsenal of missiles and drones, and that is their strength. And they are known in the Middle East as having the largest missile program in the region. So they put that on display a little bit in those attacks. I think now what we're expecting is the Iranians to overwhelm the air defense systems in Israel. And that is why we've had Israeli officials telling civilians to not leave their homes, because they're expecting Iran to respond in this manner. That is one of the things we're expecting. I think we have to remember Iran has been under international sanctions for many, many years. Their military program, their missile program. So it's been very difficult for them to advance at the rate that they would have wanted to. But despite that, they've managed, with the help of Russia and China, to really go as far as they can. And they've spent a tremendous amount of money on their defensive capabilities. So I think we're going to see their response very, very soon, and it's most likely going to be in a coordinated, multi-faceted drone and missile attack on Israel. So they are capable of responding, whether or not
you can't hit Israel, right? If they got the Golden Dome or whatever, how are they gonna? They're just gonna shoot down their missiles, probably.
It happens. Just to bring you to Washington, D.C. now, and let's bring in Allan Fisher, who can...
Don't bring in Allan Fisher, bring in me. I'll talk. I'm here in D.C. I'll talk to you about it. No worries.
Heard in the last couple of hours from the president, then we've heard from the Secretary of State, the U.S. distancing themselves from having anything to do with this attack. What is the latest on the U.S. position?
Well, just to remind people that the president hasn't actually spoken since the news of the attack itself broke. He was at a congressional picnic.
Dorset says Jeanette says you just want Dorset to interview you. Damn right, I do. Damn right.
And then he retired to the White House itself at that point.
The main anchor, too, is fine.
Room. He's due to be back there at 11 o'clock Washington time tomorrow morning, where he'll meet with his national security team. We can be sure that he has been briefed about what has been happening. And certainly we know that the United States was expecting something of this magnitude, given that just 20...
Stephen K. says Iron Dome in Israel has been proven to be inadequate with the Iran attacks last year. I thought they were adequate. Now I'm confused.
Other U.S. embassies in the Middle East, particularly Bahrain, Kuwait, United Arab Emirates, then arrangements were being made to do so. It's interesting that a number of ambassadors, the key diplomatic posts in places like Kuwait and Bahrain, they have not been filled by the Trump administration.
A few got through. Iron Dome is not 100%. No defense really could be. I guess that's my point. It's like it worked fairly well. Nothing's going to stop every little thing from happening, right?
Helping Israel prosecute a war against Iran. They have been moved out of the national security sphere. Most prominent of those was Mike Waltz, who was the national security advisor. Donald Trump said that he wasn't quite sure about his position on some things, but wanted to move him to a more important position, which of course was the UN ambassador. What is interesting is in that period of time, we haven't seen his nomination be forwarded to the Senate, which is important. And of course, we had Marco Rubio, the Secretary of State, taking over as the National Security Advisor. He has issued a statement since the attack. He said that the United States was informed that this was going to happen, that Israel was acting in its national self-interest. He warned Iran not to target either US personnel or interests. We are told by a number of US officials that the US was not involved and not assisting, although in the past, when Israel has launched attacks of this kind, there has been logistic support from the United States. So it'll be interesting to see if that stands out. Certainly, people were concerned that Benjamin Netanyahu may have taken this action as Donald Trump was preparing for his administration to have another round of talks with the Iranians in the Middle East at the weekend. It's important to point out that on April the 12th, Donald Trump said that the Iranians had to come to the table and seriously discuss their position when it comes to the Iran nuclear program, or else they would face military action. And he gave them a 60-day deadline to do that. Today is day 61.
Allan Fisher, thanks very much indeed. In the past couple of hours, Israel has struck. Thanks very much.
That, or else they would face military. Discuss their. Donald Trump said that the Iranians had to come to the table and seriously discuss their position when it comes to the Iran nuclear program, or else they would face military action. And he gave them a 60-day deadline to do that. Today is day 61.
That's interesting.
That
timeline.
The country after the strikes. The U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio warned against any retaliation.
I wonder if Israel is waiting till day 61, you know?
Rubio said the U.S. was not involved in the attack. He said Israel advised the U.S. that they believe the strikes were necessary for self-defense. A spokesman for the Iranian armed forces say Israel and the U.S. will pay a heavy price for the attack. Well, Noor O'Day joins us now from Amman. So, Noor, we've heard an unrepentant Israeli prime minister justifying these attacks.
Why would he be repentant, right? I mean, what do you expect? Some leader of a country who sends bombs to another country right afterwards isn't going to be like, oops, sorry.
To do. He called it a preemptive attack. He said it was in the interest of protecting Israel, but also of the United States. Benjamin Netanyahu very keen on trying to paint a picture, a narrative of Israeli-U.S. coordination. That line, of course, being also repeated.
I need a cold shower. Do I look hot? I feel hot. I guess just because this room is like, it's pretty small and a lot of, you know, computers and lights, and it can get hot.
In the past few minutes, reporting a fourth wave of airstrikes across Iran. The list of assassinated officials, academics, and nuclear scientists, according to Mossad sources speaking to the Israeli army radio, according to them, it is long, it is unprecedented. Some security sources say that what Israel did to Hezbollah in 10 days, taking out the leadership ranks in 10 days, it has done, or at least attempted to do, in Iran in just 10 minutes. If that is true, this would really spin the region into something completely uncharted in terms of tension, in terms of repercussions. And of course, Israel is in a state of emergency. The airspace is under lockdown. There are no flights going in or out of Ben Gurion Airport. All normal daily activity in Israel has been cancelled in accordance with the instructions of the Israeli Home Command, and Israelis have been instructed to stay close to safe areas. Those areas, of course, being the shelters that Israel has in various cities and communities. Of course, Israeli Palestinian citizens have long complained that they are short on those protection mechanisms, and so they are lacking, if you will, in those protections. Palestinians in the occupied West Bank are under lockdown, no shelters there for them.
Okay, well, Al Jazeera's correspondent Dorsa Jabari joins us here now in the studio. Dorsa, you've covered this region extensively, but what will the mood be like in Tehran now, waking up to this?
I think shock, fear, and disbelief. I've been speaking to members of my own family who are in Tehran, and they are still trying to process things that have happened over the past few hours. I think this is something that people had always had as a thought that it could happen in the back of their minds as Iranians. 47 years since the revolution of 1979, and the Iranians have been anti-Israel since then.
I am not going to the military parade, no. I see some people asking, no.
Attacks, exchanges between the two sides that broke this psychological barrier that existed between Iran and Israel, that this kind of military action against one another was never going to happen. Those operations, those attacks, limited as they were contained to specific targets in Iran and in Israel. So the general population didn't really suffer as a result of it. They didn't experience it the same way that we're seeing the images now in Iran. This, though, is the full-on version of what Israel has been promising, Netanyahu's dream for 3 decades, to ensure that Iran does not have a nuclear weapon, something the Iranians have said they are not interested in, they don't want. So we have seen these.
Dude, if you held up in a Costco during a zombie apocalypse, you could live there for at least a year, maybe even more. Right? I mean, there's some food that doesn't expire for years, and they've got to have plenty of water.
It is ongoing. It hasn't ended, the operation, as Israel has said. So the last time Iranians saw these images in the capital and other cities was during the Iran-Iraq War. And I remember as a child growing up in Tehran, the capital would come under attack on a daily basis. So those memories linger with that generation. The new generation, however, has never witnessed anything like this. And so it's going to be very much a shock, and we're seeing civilian casualties already as a result of this attack. So it's going to be very difficult for Iranians to come to terms with this finally happening inside their country. And of course, the question they will have is, what will the officials do to respond? And just want to tell you that we've heard from the Iranian Supreme Leader, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei. He has issued a statement paying condolences to what he says are martyrs, the nuclear scientists, and officials from the military. And he's also warned Israel that there will be a bitter and painful fate that is awaiting Israel.
Okay, well, Al Jazeera correspondent Ali Hashim is also with us here in the studio. Ali, just how dangerous a situation are we in now?
Well, this is unprecedented in the Middle East. We've not seen something similar since the Iraq-Iran war. This is the first, or probably, given the fact the Iran-Iran war was two sides fighting each other, but also since the Iraq war 2003. So this is a major escalation, a major event that we will remember for the coming decades. What's happening right now is that Israel committed an act of war. It attacked several provinces in Iran, vital institutions, killed officials. A very long list of officials were killed in this attack.
So is the difference between this and what happened like a year or so ago is that they were just targeting like a rebel group, and now they've actually killed like Iranian government people and military leaders and civilians? Is that the difference? Thumbs up, that's the difference. Thumbs down if I'm wrong. It's a weird way to put it, but hey, it's 2025.
Freidoun Abbasi was a former head of Iran's nuclear agency. Dr. Menochahar.
Thank you, Jules are forever.
So there are several names that
Patrick Murray says yes. Okay, cool.
Hearing and more are coming. But the most important thing is that Iranian civilians also were killed. The city of Tehran and several other cities like Kermanshah, like also in Ilam, Hamadan, these were all attacked by Israeli airstrikes. So today, Iran is in front of a major a turning point where it has to take a decision. Well, what's next? The legacy that the Islamic Republic has always been talking about and insisting on is that it was able to defend its people and the integrity of the country.
What did Israel have to gain from this? I guess they'll spin it like, you know, Iran was building their weapon capabilities. We had to stop it before it got out of control. I guess that's what they'll say.
It's related to the whole region because it's just a continuation of what's been happening since the past year when Israel started hitting what it called the arms of the octopus. You know, the strategy here is that Israel sees Iran as an octopus with arms, and it started hitting the arms. Hezbollah in Lebanon, neutralizing the Iraqi militias in Iraq, also Hamas. So, and then it hit the head. Now also it's using the same strategy.
All right, folks. I think I'm going to sign off. My leg is falling asleep. I've been sitting for like 2 hours. And I'm hot. And I don't think anything major is going to happen within the next few minutes. But who the hell knows, man? Good night, Patrick Murray, Stephen K, SG, Tashdid Khan. Thank each and every one of you. Good night, Philip H. Peace out, Jeanette. I know I didn't do squats. That's why my leg fell asleep. Totally. JoJo Star, Obsidian Knight, VKM, Brassman. Good night. Obsidian Jet. Good night. Teddy Strong Bear. Good night. Go again live tomorrow. This escalates. Maybe I will. Good night, Sharon. Have a good one, Angus. Fried Jemmy, Candy Sig Addict, Cynthia Gutierrez, Pamela Gerard. Good night.